Well, hello, Faith Family. It's time again for our daily connection. We want to join together as we are joined to the Word of God, and we're still looking at the theme of irrefutable. And I'll tell you, if you want to talk about evidence that is a demonstration that Jesus has indeed come and that He is indeed God and He did exactly what He said He would do, and it's us. It's the Christian. It's the life that we live, and this really becomes clear here in Matthew chapter 5. Today we're looking specifically at verse 15. Yesterday, Brother Aaron talked about how Jesus declared, "You're the light of the world," in verse 14. I love that statement, by the way. And then he makes two applications with that. One's a broad, sweeping sense. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Now he comes to a very individualized, personal sense for us each. Verse 15, "No one lights a lamp and puts it under a basket, but rather on a lampstand, and it gives light for all who are in the house." And so now we think about how we present irrefutable evidence that God has indeed, visited, that God is with us in the form of Emmanuel. And here he says, no one lights a lamp and puts it under a basket, meaning that it wouldn't make any sense for someone to use fuel. Because remember, in this day and time, they didn't have electricity, obviously, they didn't have bulbs. And so not just flipping a switch or clicking a lever or something like that, or touching it. It would have instead been a little small cup type, bowl shaped type thing, and it would have had to have oil in it, which oil would have been expensive. It would have been costly to provide light, and so it would have made no sense for them to then go through all that trouble and then cover it up. Well, in the same sense, we as believers should not live in such a way that it somehow hinders our ability to demonstrate Christ, because that's really what's going on here. When he talks about light, you're the light of the world. We think about light being something that provides revelation, because when a room is dark, unless you're very, very familiar with that room, then you don't know what's where. Even I can remember at times as a young man, going into a place that I was pretty familiar with that room, but still there was no light available, no natural light available, and I hadn't gotten to the light switch yet, and so I'm just, I'm stretching my eyes to try to allow some kind of light in, and inevitably scared that I'm going to bump into something, I'm going to trip over something. Well, as Christians, we are to be a form of illumination. As all the spiritual darkness is around us, and we're immersed in it, as an unbeliever, we as believers are to be a source of illumination by providing truth, by providing understanding. And so to somehow dampen that or hinder that, Jesus says that wouldn't make any sense. It'd be like somebody lighting a lamp and then, covering it up. Nobody does that. The other thing that life it provides is, some cases it's a source of life. Whether it's natural light from the sun or some sources of artificial light can be utilized to sustain plant life and other forms of life over various seasons. And so again, it wouldn't make any sense that we would be that source of life and somehow we would hinder that or somehow inhibit that ability, which is fascinating, because one of the questions that the author asks is, how do we sometimes hide our light? What are some of the things we do to hinder its effectiveness? And of course, one of the easiest ones to that is, number one, we allow sin to remain. If sin is present in our life, then that's going to hinder our ability and our effectiveness to be light. Every day should be a day of reflection and confession, because we have the promise that if we confess our sin, God is faithful and just. He forgives us of that sin. He removes all of our iniquity. He takes away those hindrances to our ability to be effective light. The other way is by staying, kind of blending in with the crowd of sorts, not representing, the character of Christ, not representing the conduct of Christ in a loving, compassionate way. Therefore, we're just kind of blending in with the world, blending in with the culture. And friends, no matter how good a culture is, no matter how morally good a culture is, or how wholesome a culture is, inevitably, if that culture is not rooted in a relationship with Christ, it's not rooted in Judeo-Christian values, driven by personal relationship with Christ, then, it's not that light of the world. It's not that city on the hill. It's not that lamp. So for us to blend in with that, it means that we're hindering our ability to be effective light. And effectiveness is a key word in this case, because he says, no one lights a lamp and puts it under a basket, but puts it on a lampstand, and it gives light to everyone in the house, all those in the house. What he means by that is that light has to be placed strategically to provide the greatest effect. He didn't say that. He says no one lights a lamp and just leaves it. No, they place it on a lampstand. that lamp is positioned strategically to have the greatest overall effect. And the same is true for us. And that means that whereas an unbeliever in a situation that's undesirable, uninvited, would be discouraged, speak negatively toward it, believers should view all aspects of life very differently. And we should understand every situation that we find ourselves in. We should understand every condition and season of life as an opportunity and a strategic placing of God of us so that we can provide light, so that we can provide hope, so we can provide revelation. Think of it. Let's just say you've received a certain diagnosis, and that's now puts you to where you've got to go to a clinic on a routine basis, or you got to be involved in certain medical processes weekly or daily or monthly or whatever. While you're there, you're going to be light. You can be light. Don't allow that light to be covered up by a basket. Instead, let that light shine. Represent Christ with hope. Represent Christ with love and compassion, being more concerned with others than you are with yourself. And, I just think about all the different people over the past just few years that, we've heard their testimony where maybe they had cancer, and because of that, they had to go, for certain seasons, maybe every week, or in some cases, once a month, to go get an infusion of chemo treatment. And they talked about how during that season, instead of sitting there and being dreary and downtrodden, they were delightful. They were engaging with others. They were a source of hope to others. You know what that was? That was a lamp on a lampstand providing light to everyone in the room. And that should be a motive. Jesus' word should challenge us. Those testimonies should encourage us that it can happen and it should happen. So I'm encouraging you to be light today. God has placed you exactly where He wants you to be in this season, whether that's in education, whether that's in vocation, whether that's in recreation, or just in your neighborhood. Let your light shine. Don't be guilty of hiding the lamp under the basket. Instead, let your light be a means of revelation to who Jesus is, the character of Christ, and the conduct of Christ. Let your light be a means of life, where we come alongside others. We provide hope. We provide love, joy, compassion, kindness, all the fruits of the Spirit. Let your light shine so that others can see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. And you know what happens when we do that? When we let our light shine for illumination, for encouragement, for hope, for revelation, you know what happens? We are being faithful to do exactly what Christ told us to do every day. That is, you guessed it, living sent.